American colleagues get very disappointed when anybody lands in the UK and they say we work for Caterpillar. Ah yeah, you make boots. Well, we brand some boots, but honestly we don't make boots. They're licensed and they're sold, and that's fine, but that's a very, very small element of what we do. But really, in terms of Caterpillar, we're in a huge number of different industries in the majority of the locations around the globe. Some pieces of equipment you will know and see and recognise very easily. Other areas and industries you may not be so aware that it is Caterpillar and what Caterpillar is involved in. But ultimately our job, be it remanufacturing or product design or engines, is around making sure that we give our customers the best quality product we can, the best service, the best support to allow them to be successful in whatever business they've chosen to operate in. Remanufacturing in our terms, we started in 1973 in Corinth in Mississippi with an 1100 series engine. And in principle, if we take the yellow side first, often the original equipment manufacturer will bring product, be it an engine, a machine, into the product life cycle for the customer. That product will perform and do the job it's intended to do. There'll be regular maintenance carried out on that vehicle, service interval checks, certain components, parts replaced, oil filters, etc. That product will then mature, and at a point just before it all falls apart and starts costing everybody too much money, typically that is where this cycle would finish. And what we've done since 1973 is looked across that cycle, and we'll talk more about how do we incent this return back into Caterpillar later. But the core comes, so the core, the old engines, old transmissions, turbos, etc. comes back into Caterpillar, at which point we will clean those, apply various salvage techniques, remanufacture, test, and then come back into the supply chain. This is not rebuilding, this is not reconditioning, this is remanufacturing. We take the worn out iron, apply some fairly sophisticated technology to certain components. I've spoken about our dealers, very important part of our business, but it's absolutely key for bringing our old used material back into us, and therefore as we have outbound logistics going into our dealers and distribution, they receive old components coming back in from our customers, and that return supply loop from the transportation is then what brings core back into us. So as products going out, we're also bringing then old material back. Why would I do that? I've got a huge lump of metal and I've got the scrap man knocking on my door saying I'll give you X for this large lump of metal. What we've tried over the years is various iterations of this, but as an example, price of a new engine would be $8,000. What we do is offer the price of a reman engine, same spec, same warranty, same or improved quality, and we offer that to the customer for $8,000. The reman part, by the time we've applied the technology, the labour, etc., and priced that so that we make a fair margin on that, would be $4,000. But then we make up the difference from this $4,000 to the $8,000 by what we call a core deposit. So at the point the customer comes back into the dealership and says, my engine's about to fail, I'd like to buy a new one, and I have a reman one, yes, you pay $8,000. At the point they've switched the old engine out and bring that back to the dealer, they get their $4,000 back. That difference is significantly more than the scrap man is going to offer for that engine, and that's absolutely the critical piece for us to incent the customer to bring that product back. But we can't do that without a good strong dealer network and a good understanding of how remanufacturing works, and genuinely are we standing behind that warranty and that quality. We've had a lot of debate, and this is one of the areas where we've got it wrong, and we've tried different things in the past. One of the potential thoughts in the marketplace is, I'm buying a reman product and I've given you my old one, so surely I should get that for less from the start. I shouldn't have to pay you the same. But when you do that, the incentive then isn't great enough for the customer to bring the core back, and therefore your core dries up and therefore your business dries up. So if we offer reman with a lower price range, then that creates a bad core incentive. Our return rates are an awful lot lower. Equally, If we price it higher, saying, well, this is really good value, and actually we should put a higher core deposit on a particular product, that's a disincentive, and the customer says, well, if I've got to pay more for that, fine, don't worry, I'll just buy the new one. So we fixed that and said the price needs to be the same. Somebody has bought back an old engine but taken 2/3 of the pieces off it to use somewhere else. That is of less value to us than if it was in its state that we would like it to be in the core acceptance criteria. So we have various centres, one of them being here across the globe at our Reman facilities, that will go through each of the part numbers, each of the core acceptance criteria to be able to determine that level of core. Very specific documents in terms of full core refund or no core refund or partial, and continually we'll evaluate those. Sometimes we've set the bar too high on what we would like to have back, and through usage application we're just not getting any core at all, so we have to come back and adjust those parameters. But, that's been an evolution, but is an important part of the process. So really, core is king. Without that, we can't do anything. That's where the value is in terms of components. So we need quality product. It's about price and value. How do we get product flowing through the business? And in terms of salvage, in terms of our business model, we look at overhead costs, and we can try and assemble the engine a little bit faster. We can try and apply some ergonomics to speed that process up. We can look at how do we speed things up through the test cycle. But the bulk of the cost is in the material, and if I can't salvage a block, I have to bring in a new one. That's where the expense is. So we focus our efforts on the salvage side, and therefore we do work on efficiency, and we do look and try and build engines as quick as we can, but therefore we need to be industry competitive here in terms of our overheads for the buildings, electricity, power, fuel. What are we spending in terms of our labour, and how much investment are we making on the equipment, and how do we depreciate that? But our main focus and the bulk of the cost is on the material side, and therefore every pound I save on a part I don't have to throw in the bin, I can reuse, and the business model continues to work. Spend time looking at cleaning processes, how can we identify defects earlier in the process so we don't have to put as much work in. You've seen some of the metal spray applications today. We apply again that here through spraying in the bore of engine block. Fluidized sand bed cleaning, so heated gas coming up through and agitating sand within a bed, and that cleaning. Certainly some casting defects in blocks. We're able to machine out certain sections of those blocks, heat the block up just to the point at which it's molten in that area, and then pour in some molten material, and that will then adhere and bond, and we can remachine that back. And also then in terms of thin film coatings on injectors and injector nozzles to allow us to remanufacture those. There are elements of, once we've stripped down an engine, that we can always remanufacture and reuse those components. There are also parts that we will always reuse and add new, so seals, gaskets, those sorts of elements. Then there are the parts where we may be able to salvage them, we may not, depending on the failure and the condition, and we structure that in terms of what we call a V%, so our variable percentage of that bill of material. And therefore everything that's all remanufactured, we assume we're going to be able to use those all the time. Those that we know we're going to have to buy new, we place those orders on our suppliers all the time. We set a V% and manage those inventory levels then of, if I have 5 cores, can I get 3 blocks? Therefore I use the 3 blocks and order 2 new ones, or overstrip 2 more. And maybe I get a higher return from the particular batch of engines, and I may get 4, not 3, therefore I've got 1 extra that I wasn't anticipating. But in terms of managing the business and making it profitable, the percentage and how we set those levels is absolutely critical. I've mentioned quality again, and we'll continue to do so every time we talk about it. It's absolutely critical and important, but we do warranty the same as new. And customers buy the early machines. We look at the seed, grow and harvest model. Somebody may not spend $4 million on that large mining truck unless they know they've got good value remanufactured components to be able to maintain that vehicle over its lifetime. So we talk about overall owning and operating costs for the customer. And it's not just that initial purchase, it's the overall lifetime of the vehicle in its use. some slightly out of date statistics at the moment, but for 2010 across our remanufacturing business across the globe, we had 20 truckloads of core coming back in a day, 2.1 million pieces across the year, and in American pounds, in terms of weight, 134 million pounds of material was remanufactured. Just a visual in terms of some of the components that we can remanufacture across a vehicle, from the engine back here down through the transmission and gearboxes, axles, wheel hubs, hydraulic cylinders. And then in terms of components on the engine, from the complete unit, but also from cams, cranks, water pumps, etc. One of the pieces are, we can sell components, we can sell small assemblies, or we can sell complete engines, dependent on the customer, where they are, and all the capabilities of the dealer, or the capacity in terms of turnaround time at a particular instance. So we're not trying to compete with our dealers in their workshops, we're trying to be a support function to that and make sure the customer's supported. So just to wrap up, Reman's not merely a repair, it's not a rebuild, it's about a good professional factory environment. In terms of manufacturing, we include the latest engineering upgrades. We do use genuine Caterpillar parts, and we match the warranty.